Hello there, humans, hippies, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and if you're lucky enough indeed to be doing it too. Welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm going to be showing you a couple of Soviet tanks that don't really get the love they deserve. Namely, the 122-54, which you see here, which is the Tier 9 Soviet TD in the Object 263 line. And then we're going to kick it all the way down to Tier 8, where we have a look at the Su-101, which is the Tier 8 of the same variant. Now, the big thing about these two tanks is they are not your normal TD. They do not function in the manner of your normal TD. The 122-54 is lightning fast on the reload, has the most ridiculous DPM. In fact, it clocks out at, get this, 4,274 damage per minute. Now, one of the things that this tank does exceptionally well is burn stuff down. It's the kind of gun, because it is only a marginally larger alpha than most of the heavy tanks in its tier, like 420, that if it gets a little bit of time on target, like you can see my good mate Serb here rocking and rolling is doing versus the Chrysler, it will absolutely rinse. Anything that pushes into this thing when it is not entirely necessary is going to lose an absolute buttload of hit points. Look at how much damage Serb is putting out in such a limited amount of time. Every time he goes back to the gun, the reload is ready. And, I mean, that's the only shot he's taken so far that hasn't outputted damage, but it's still managed to track the target, and he's absolutely dusted that Chrysler. And the thing that a lot of people don't realize with these Russian TDs is how effective they can be when put in the situation to just basically hit point trade, because they are soft, they are relatively fragile, and they don't have an arseload of hit points. So what you end up with is situations where people think, oh, I can clear that tank really, really easily. And the next thing you know, they're walking away holding onto their teeth in a small bag and wondering what the hell happened. And Serb is illustrating this point in beautiful fashion now. The 44 does a good job there, but this is all over bar the shouting. And it's all over bar the shouting because Serb whipped around here at lightning speed in this wonderful little beauty and dumped a bucket load of DPM. Now, it's not very hard to sell the Su-122-54. It is, in fact, a gorgeous vehicle that has an awful lot going for it. It is a lot harder when you talk about the 122mm toting Su-101. Because for all the fact that it is a 122mm gun, it doesn't really have what you'd expect in terms of DPM. The Su-100M1 at Tier 7 has more DPM than the Su-101 at Tier 8, which is kind of surprising. And the problem a lot of people have with this weapon and this gun in particular is that they run the wrong weapon. The Tier 9 gun on this tank will give you a paltry 2,473 damage per minute. That is the 122mm M62 C2. It'll do 420 alpha damage. That's great. And it'll give it to you at 258 pen. That's great. But if you run the 100mm, then you are in for an entirely different experience. The 100mm with only two 19mm of pen at Tier 8 will do 3,067 damage per minute, although it only has 310 alpha. And you have to run it, if you're going to be running that tank, as an entirely different vehicle. So what happens is a lot of people run the 400 alpha gun, and they run it like you'd run it on the Su-122-54, or rather the 420 alpha gun. That is, they roll forward YOLO and try and burn stuff down with DPM. And it just won't work. The reason being is that the DPM on that, as a Tier 8 TD with 1100 hit points, is about the same as a DPM on a heavy tank, which is not a whole bunch of DPM. It's more, but it's not more to the degree that it makes a big ass load of difference when you've only got 1100 hit points. So what you really want to be doing is making a conscious decision. Are you going to run the burn 'em down gun on the Su-100, 101, or are you going to run the high alpha gun? And the reason that is so important is that if you run either of these guns, you're really committing to a playstyle. For instance, the 310 alpha 3000 DPM gun that you could have a look at has 2 degrees of gun depression. Now that is a horrific number. And if you don't know how hard it is to play without gun depression, when you're driving a non-turreted TD, jump in this thing and see how different the playstyle is compared to your normal tank destroyer. The other thing is you get 4 degrees, which doesn't sound like a lot when you're running the higher alpha gun, but it is so much. Like 2 degrees of gun depression feels like the gun is pointing up in the air at all the time, and it's hard to get shots. So you have to play the tank in a really aggressive manner, and it's built to do that. The 101 is a tank that can absolutely motor 54 kilometers an hour is your top speed. That is a huge, big ass bunch of top end torque. You can get out there and shuffle around very, very quickly when you need to. Now, you don't have to. You can still run this tank and play it as a backline sniper because the gun is accurate and it can pump DPM very, very quickly. But when push comes to shove and you've got a motor, like when someone pushes up on you, you can likewise do that as well. And the gun, like I said, is accurate, has good pen, and is very, very capable. Well, it's not good, but it's solid. Like the BL9 from the IS-3 will run 225. The Carnarvon, those kind of tanks. The 310 Alpha gun on this one will run at about 219mm of pen. And at 3k DPM, that is a very, very manageable proposition. Now, this is a tank that doesn't get a lot of play. And I can understand that because that is a really, really intense kind of idea. Playing a tier 8 TD that has no gun depression and doesn't really have the ability to mitigate damage as a balls out demolition derby machine. But if you're going to do it, then, you know, watch it versus a tank like this Yag Tiger. The mobility on this tank is much better than the Yags. And that means it can get shots that the Yag quite simply can't get. And it can get and maneuver in situations that the Yag quite simply cannot maneuver in. Namely, very, very tight turns like that. That is an exceptionally solid bit of work here from our amigo Split Crescent. I mean, he has really done some lovely stuff there as he pokes along at 4,000 odd damage, in excess now of 4,000 damage. I just thought it was worth taking a look at a tank that, a set of tanks that don't really get the credit they deserve. The 122.54, I think it's still the highest DPM in the game, which is pretty exceptional. Look at this bloke. He will not come out. He just won't come out and give him that extra little bit of damage. He's going to sit there and he's behind on points. Like he needs to get out, but he just stays there at ACAP. I don't know why he'd bother. Yeah, take a look at this line, and at the end of it, you get the Object 263. So, what's to lose? Until next time, look after yourselves and stay safe on the battlefield. Bye for now.